I, as the only ACC grad in the room, want to talk about all my brethren in the conference. And Boston College is the first up on their schedule. So, Craig, take it away.
No, you go ahead and do it. I guess this turned out from just doing Big 12 to doing all of these. I got to say, I'm not nearly as interested in Boston College as I was in some of the Big 12 or all of the Big 12 schools. But sure, let's talk Boston College. And into the summer, we'll have gone over every single team in the quote-unquote power leagues, I guess. But, yeah, I got to be honest with you. My Boston College knowledge is limited, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I remember every single rivalry game and the meaning behind it and all of that, but I'll do my best here. So Boston College, a team that would you want them in the new Big 12? And by the new Big 12, I mean if you are of mind that they're going to swallow some ACC teams in 2030, which – I guess that's another is it going to take all the way to 2030, or do you feel like Florida State and Miami and whoever?
I think it is because that gets them – that's the number that's palatable, right? Like if you know that – and plus, like that also gives it an opportunity to call one of these conferences and say like, hey, can we come into the next TV deal where they can reasonably negotiate it? Because one of the things I think if the Big Ten and SEC just didn't want them at all – then what I would see Florida State and Clemson and the ACC doing is trying to just form an entirely new conference and trim what they consider the dead weight.
Yeah.
Like that, and I
don't think that's happening anytime soon.
No. I don't think that's happening. Like that to me is like plan D for them, but
that's like 10 years from now.
Yeah, I'm sure that's on the list of like, okay, well, so here's what we'll do. We're going to opt out. We're going to start our own conference and we're going to bring in what we need. But I think that one, it's just really far-fetched. And so to answer your question, of the teams available in the ACC that would help the Big 12, they would be far down on my list, if not at the very bottom.
Yeah, they wouldn't be very high up on mine, and it's nothing against Boston College. I think I can already hear some random Boston College fan, we don't want to be in the Big 12. And I'm like, hey, I understand. Yeah. I would totally understand that, so I think that probably cuts both ways, but I was just curious of sort of your thoughts, and, yeah, I do feel like they would probably be on the lower portion of the list for what people would ideally want to see, the league look like if they are able to eventually go that route. But Boston College, a team that's very interesting. You got Bill O'Brien there as your head coach, have a guy with a lot of experience, a very polarizing guy, Bill O'Brien. Like, I think everybody agrees, genius football mind, but, I don't know. There's some people he just sort of are not big believers in him. But last year, 7-6, got to a bowl game, finished tied for 8th in the ACC, lost in the pinstripe game last year to close out the season against Matt Rule and Nebraska, 20-15 in that pinstripe bowl. So that's where we last left Boston College, was year one of Bill O'Brien, bowl season, and a loss to Nebraska at Yankee Stadium. So now looking ahead to this next season, no Castellanos, right?
No, he's in Tallahassee.
He's in Tallahassee, so big move there by your quarterback, and I guess that'll be more for previews. But they open up with no Castellanos at Fordham, against Fordham there at home. Then they will travel the following week to East Lansing, Michigan on Saturday, September the 6th to take on Michigan State. They will then the following week travel all the way out to California, Stanford, Northern California, to meet the Cardinal in a little ACC action there. And then they get their first break of the season. So first 3 weeks, you've got Fordham, you've got Michigan State and East Lansing, and then you travel to Stanford to take on the Cardinal. So it's a pretty well-traveled first couple of big games there on your schedule, going to Michigan and then to California.
Yeah, it is interesting. They at Michigan State, again, we don't know how they're going to be. I think year two under Jonathan Smith, they'll probably should be pretty good.
Yeah, good.
All right. At Stanford, don't know how Stanford's going to be. Don't really know. I think Cal lost their quarterback, so I don't know how they're going to be early on. They've got a very weird schedule of 3 8-1 in their buys. So, this is, and again, this is me. I feel like I know a little bit more about BC than maybe you do, Craig.
You definitely do. You should, at least.
Yeah. I don't know. They got off. They needed – Jeff Hafley went and took the defensive coordinator job, with the Packers last year. Bill O'Brien came in, and he kind of set up a system that works for BC. And, I think it will continue to work. I just don't know if they can get the kind of talent in there that he's going to want to win the conference. But I think they'll just be efficient. And, again, he's polarizing because, again, he's not a little ray of sunshine, that's for sure. And he's very controlling. So we'll see. But I do think that this is a team that, if you look good, if you wind up 2-1 out of these first three, whether that's Michigan State or Stanford getting a win, I think you should be all right. And maybe they could be 3-0 because, again, I don't really know how good Michigan State and Stanford are going to be because they're both in the same spot that Boston College is, which is second year under a relatively new head coach.
Yes, so that's how the first leg of this journey will go, with a couple of pretty significant road trips, come back, and you will be at home against Cal on Saturday, September the 27th. The following week, travel to Pitt to take on the Panthers. Then it's home against Clemson on Saturday, October the 11th. Home again against UConn in a non-con matchup there on Saturday, October the 18th. So you start conference play a little bit early, but you have that late non-con matchup. Then Louisville.
Protect your online privacy with Nord VPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, Nord VPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com.
On October the 25th, then you get Notre Dame on November the 1st. SMU on November the 8th will be also at home. And, they got a lot of these home games.
Yeah.
It's weird. They got 3 straight home games in November. Notre Dame, SMU, and then Georgia Tech, and then finally another bye week. I was sitting there thinking, am I missing something here? But they've got the bye week after the first 3 games, and they don't have another one until before their very last game. So if I'm reading that right.
Yeah.
And so 8 straight games without a bye, which will be home against Cal, at Pitt, home against Clemson, home against UConn, at Louisville, home against Notre Dame, home against SMU, home against Georgia Tech, and then a break.
Yeah, while I said maybe 2-1 out of the first one, if you told me that they were 2-9 going into the Syracuse game, or 3-8, I would totally believe that. This is tough. Again, Cal, of the first 4 games of their season, I think Cal is clearly the most established head coach. Maybe not the best one, but at Pitt is going to be really tough. Clemson should win that game. UConn should be a win for BC, but at Louisville, Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech, all back-to-back, and that's, Miller Moss at quarterback, probably C.J. Carr, Kevin Jennings, Haynes King. That's tough. And if Syracuse improves on what they did last year, and they were good then too, this is going to be a really tough. I have a hard time seeing a bowl coming out of the schedule for Boston College.
Yeah, that first 3 games, they could beat Michigan State or Stanford. I suppose that's not off the table at all. So that first 3 you can sort of manage, even though there's a couple of long road trips there. But then, that second part, you do have 6 home games in that 8-game consecutive stretch, including 3 straight there at the end of that. Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech, all at Alumni Stadium. That's pretty salty. So if you're buying home tickets for Boston College, I think you're pretty happy with the slate. You get Clemson, you get Notre Dame, you get Georgia Tech, and those are 3 pretty sexy games. And then SMU's a good team, and I don't know how much crossover there is with UConn and Boston College, if there's anything to that as well, but that's just another home game for them to have. So, yeah, man, Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech, November 1st, 8th, and 15th. All there in Boston. And then they get their last break before coming back on November the 29th against Syracuse, which will be on the road. So that's how they will close things out, is against the Orange, after getting a couple of weeks to prepare for that game. So that is where Bill O'Brien and company find themselves. One road game past October the 25th. So one road game in their final four, and yeah, a schedule where it could get sideways really fast. But if they start off strong, maybe that'll put them in a good position to make a bowl game once again. But yeah, definitely not going to predict them to be in the ACC championship game. And that middle part of the schedule to the late part, that could get really nasty if things aren't going their way at that point. So, there you have it. There is Boston College's schedule. They get Clemson. They get Notre Dame. They get Georgia Tech. They get Louisville. And some other. Syracuse was good last year. SMU was obviously a playoff team last year. So a couple of playoff teams on this schedule. Yeah, man, they could be fighting for it to get back to 6 wins again and getting back to a bowl game.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, they've got there's a lot of experienced quarterbacks coming at them. There's a lot of teams that were good. Like Pitt, I can't wait I'm looking forward to talking about them, because this is a team that, looked like they were on a roll last year. Their starting quarterback gets hurt, and the whole thing fell apart.
Right.
Like they were definitely just Jekyll and Hyde of a season. And, I it pains me to say this, like, I'm thinking about FSU schedule as well, that we'll have Clemson in Florida and Miami all on it. And I think Clemson and Florida are going to be two of the better teams in the country. I really do. Like, I'm buying in, and maybe that's just rival fear that happens sometimes. But so looking at this for them, like, Louisville's a really tough place to go and play. Notre Dame, that's a long-time rivalry between those two schools, so that one a little bit more. But SMU's gonna be really good again. Like when do you get a break in the schedule? And then even though you do get those 3 games at home of Notre Dame, SMU, and Georgia Tech, man, like, that's all teams that have a ton of experience coming back.
It's hard to imagine on paper that many teams have like a tougher on paper schedule in those 3 weeks of Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech, but we'll see how good those teams are. Obviously, some of these teams we're pumping up may not be that good. Some of these teams we don't think are that great, maybe pretty good. But yeah, this is an on-paper exercise. And just to glance in, like I said at the beginning, like, I don't have a knowledge of the ACC like you do, but it is fun to kind of just look through their schedule, because I typically wouldn't do that, or I would just sort of dash through it, but just to kind of sit on it for 15 or so minutes. It's interesting to get a glimpse at that. So now I feel better equipped to talk about Boston College moving forward and kind of have an understanding of the uphill battle they could be facing on that second half of their schedule. But there you go, trying to get back to a bowl game and build on that for Bill O'Brien and company. Certainly favorable when it comes to the amount of home games, 7 home games. Maybe not so favorable in the teams that you drew, but you don't play Miami. You don't play Florida State. And who else would you be missing out of this? You play pretty much everybody else, though. Yeah.
I mean,
so you miss those 2, but you get probably all the rest of the contenders, so to speak. So, yeah, that second half will be from that Clemson game on, but it could be interesting before that. So I think that's a entertaining schedule if you're Boston College.
Yeah, you get to avoid the North Carolina schools. Duke, I think, will be a contender as well. So, like, you do avoid Duke as well. So you get to, and God in heaven knows what Florida State will be. I don't know. I mean, it's like 13-0 to 2-10 is such a hard. That's such a hard thing to, like, how much, like, are they going to swing all the way back the other way miraculously? Is it somewhere in the middle? Are they going to suck again? I don't know.
Man, if they were to go like 2-10 again, that would be hilarious. Can you imagine?
It would not be hilarious.
Oh, I would laugh so hard.
Yeah.
After I felt bad for you first, of course.
But you don't feel bad for me. Don't lie.
It just makes better show bait.
It does. I think Florida State's like the control group of the new college football experiment of how it could be. Like, like you're riding high, like, and then all of a sudden you're just like nothing. Like, album 1, nothing but hits. Album 2, duds. And then out of nowhere, maybe album 3 is good. I don't know. Like, they're like a band, Yeah,
well, you better hope they're good for your head coach's sake, because repeat of last year. You'll see his his ass hit the road, especially with all the stuff that's swirling just in terms of the future. So, yeah, it's very important for Florida State to have a good year. And, look, man, for Boston College and all these other schools, I don't know what the feeling's like up there. It's a pro sports town more than anything. But I think there's an extra element where, I mean, how much more pressure could you really apply, or how much more stakes could you push in the middle of the table, really, outside of just saying, like, win or you die. But I think with the news this week, for everybody in the ACC, there is going to be that extra pep in their step, or that extra kick in the butt of, like, this is like, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know how quickly you're going to get there, but you see it, and it's going to grow larger each week. So it's imperative that you put on your best face from here on out and try to win to help yourself out in the future and help the ACC out, especially if you're a school like Boston College that is all in on the ACC maintaining itself and being as successful as it possibly can. Like, it's up to you guys, because Florida State and those, they're going to get their money, and then they're going to go do whatever they're going to do, and they're not going to care two bits about what is going on with you. So you need NC State and Boston College and Pitt and all these other schools to really raise their game if at all possible. But, you know, easier said than done.